The Movie Club movies.
Press play.
Hi,
Movie Club movie listeners.
I've got a few things to mention before we start the episode. I put a quarter into this recording booth to record this part of the episode, so bear with me as I give you some information at the top of the episode. I mentioned a Mick Jagger song. I don't know what I was thinking about. I can't backtrack onto what song I'm thinking because I don't think that there is a song by Mick Jagger with that title. That rarely happens to me, so I don't know what I was thinking. Also, more importantly, this movie reminds me of Donnie Darko and hints of Vanilla Sky. Recently, I got to watch Beetlejuice. Arthur's character Jeremy wears a similar red jacket, which makes sense because they're referencing the 80s. No spoilers, worth a Movie Club movies watch. I just thought that movie was okay. The characters Drood and Beetlejuice share some similarities. I want to mention something I missed from our last movie, from our episode 13, the movie Deja Vu. I got a chance to watch again, and I noticed that in a scene with Denzel and Bruce Greenwood, and actually Val Kilmer, first sort of meeting in this activity space workstation setup. It's before they go to the active workstation, but on these monitors at these desks are like one or two, I guess it is like a lingerie model photo. I couldn't believe it, but that adds to either they're trying to talk about that the folks at the desks that might have dropped the ball on all the sort of things that go in the logistics. Human safety was dropped. That's one of the details dropped during the tragic events of 2007 and so on. Good enough commentary. But boy, are they really playing it out to dirtball levels, and that on these monitors, just in the background, clear as day, but blurry enough that I didn't see it on like, I don't know, 3 watchings and recording of the podcast. I did not see these. Anyway, I missed that from an episode ago. The Movie Club movies. Tonight's feature, SLAMDANCE, 1987. This is an MGM movie, and the rating is R. This movie is not available at my region of libraries. I want to highlight our stunts by Steve Kelso. He's a popular stuntman, works a lot, and here's a highlight of his movies. Marvel movies, Punch Drunk Love, some of the Fasts, The Last Crusade, and Lost World. Sherry Peterson from The Craft and Darkman. Gary Littlejohn, a bunch of fun ones, worth taking a look if you're interested. The Mask and Vampire in Brooklyn. Also, Michael Cassidy from Silence of the Lambs, Return of the Jedi, The Abyss. So many classics, as if any of the stunt people are highlighted from a lot of the movies we cover. They're usually successful working stunt people in a lot of classics. It's been really interesting to go along, but at the same time, some of the movies we've covered don't have very many stunt people working whatsoever. That just seems to be the case. Moving forward, this movie is directed by WANG. You may know his movies Made in Manhattan with J-Lo, and a very popular San Francisco-based movie, Joy Luck Club. Also, Eat a Bowl of Soup, Dim Sum, A Little Bit of Heart from 1985, Life is Cheap, but Toilet Paper is Expensive, 1989, and again, maybe some of his more popular work, Chan is Missing, from 1982. There is a connection of Wayne Wang and a movie called The White of the Eye. This is Mark Hayashi. He is a TMCMS superstar, Stu, and the namesake of the Stu Award. Okay, that's for a future episode. Cinematography, very special in Wayne Wang's movies, very visual movies, very poetic movies, and very detail-centric. The cinematographer is Amir Makuri. It's written by Don Keith Opper, and it stars one of the Movie Club movies' favorite actresses, Virginia Madsen. We know her and we love her from Highlander 2, Sideways with Sandra Oh and Paul Giamatti. This also stars TomHulce as C.C. Drood. He is most famous as the role of Mozart Amadeus in the movie Amadeus, and I believe he won an Oscar. That movie is worth checking out. However, these two movies together in conversation are very controversial because he didn't do much after this, and he was full of potential. I would say so is Virginia Madsen, and I think we know she went on to bigger and better things. She could have done more, in my opinion, and I usually bring that up when talking about her, which actually led me to this movie. Finding out that she's in this movie and that this movie exists led me to checking it out many years ago. Also realizing that this star actor TomHulce didn't go on to do much, but get this, some of those with incredible skill and potential find themselves in successful content nonetheless, because he's the voice of Disney's Hunchback. He was also in an early role of Animal House, and you may remember him as a dirtbag in the movie Parenthood, which is a depressing movie. And in 1985, he was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actor in his performance. In 1989, a critically acclaimed performance as an intellectually challenged garbage collector in the 1988 movie Dominic and Eugene. So he was only nominated for Amadeus, but this other movie, Dominic and Eugene, I have yet to see this, but it gets notable exception because someone is trying to play an eccentric person, a person who may be thinking on a different pace than most of us, because I can't explain that movie much else, but interesting career curve for that dude. Another great actor is Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, plays Helen Drood, and she is a gorgeous actor. I know her from Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and she's out there in so many others. Here is a big name for the TMCMS pod. We always love to see him. Harry Dean Stanton. I mean, he's in everything. Everything. But we love him, and we celebrate him in Repo Man and in Pretty in Pink. Robert Beltran as Frank. He is Hector from Night of the Comic. Way to go, Robert Beltran. We are excited to see you in this one, if only a bit part. And then the writer is Don Keith Opper. He plays Buddy, and I am calling him Red Jacket Hipster. He wrote this movie and is not necessarily in a bunch of other movies. Red Jacket that he usually wears in this movie is like he's dressing like the era. So I applaud this feature. But also looks just like the Busboys, which is Eddie Murphy's opening band and the band featured in 48 Hours, etc. They also had the big hit, The Boys Are Coming to Town. And if you know anything about Eddie Murphy's early work, you might have heard that music. If you like experiencing odd 1980s soundtrack bands and sort of one soundtrack wonders, they're on that. And just like the sort of fashion of the time, the sort of Elvis Costello subculture, folks were wearing these sort of members-only cut jackets and tight ties and stuff like that. And that is mostly what this character is wearing. Also, Adam Ant as Jimbo. He is a rock star. He's a controversial figure, a problematic figure, but out of the early 80s and 70s culture. So, you know, his lifestyle was rock and roll, if you happen to look him up. But his partner in this crime, in this controversial era, is Amanda Donahue, who actually went on to sort of hold her own and stabilize herself as a strong, creative individual, even though she was with Adam Ant at a controversial young age. Moving forward, another band member, rock star in this movie is John Doe, who plays John Gilbert. He is a co-founder of the LA punk band X. And also Lynn Shay, a librarian we see briefly. She is a pretty young actress in this, but we know her as sort of a, I don't know, middle age, always sort of a bitty body, a nosy neighbor, sort of a grumpy older person, although she's middle aged in most of the movies we're seeing her. but she plays that. But here she's a young person, and we just see her for a brief moment, and it's wild to find out these stars I would have seen as a young person, and to see her in an early role was really surprising and fun about these movies. She plays the landlord in Kingpin and Sally in Critters, and the landlord in Kingpin might illustrate who I'm talking about. She plays a very young person in this, and actually I don't think she has much to say. I think she hands over some research materials, and that's it. Moving on, Millie Perkins as Bobby. Her role as Anne Frank in The Diary of Anne Frank in 1959. Just again, I'm just like to highlight some of these really great actors. Judith Basari as Bean. This is Drood's young daughter, and she is worth highlighting because she was a potential superstar, verge of breaking out. Although she was a young kid, she is worth looking up because she has a tragic story. She is the voice of everyone's favorite Ducky in the OG Land Before Time. Also, the voice of Anne-Marie in All Dogs Go to Heaven. Her father was extremely abusive, and her mother tried to leave her father. She died at the hands of her father while trying to maintain a safe distance from her father and also manage her career. Her father was just self-destructive, family destructive, and she tragically died before All Dogs Go to Heaven came out. I think as a small child we were aware of some of these stories because we had seen those movies. But I am so glad I did not remember this because this poor girl, she does a great job in this movie. And then, like I'm trying to say, we remembered her from those movies as kids, and those movies have great voices, all well done. Shout out to Judith Basari. You did great work here, and we're going to see it in just a moment. We're taking another step in movie adventures, exploring tonight's feature. I have just a note of a description, simply put, about this movie, and I wanted to add it to our introduction of the movie because I think it at least sums it up on a basic level. An underground cartoonist is drawn into a web of corruption, blackmail, and deceit. A little bit of my approach to this movie was, I really do enjoy Virginia Madsen. Sideways, she's great. Highlander 2, it's just a fun, if these talented actors and actresses are in these gems of these bad movies, these off movies, it is brilliant when you get to see them work and they shine through. My personal opinion is Virginia Madsen does just that in Highlander 2. It's not a perfectly made movie, and you just see her talent shine through like a beam of light on a cloudy day. Moving forward, being able to search other movies with her led me to this. I think even this was available to rent at a cool rental store. On top of that, I think with streaming coming of age in like the 2010s or whatever, I think I just caught it that way. I think it's a very creative movie. It's a very stylized movie. It's a very visual movie. However, it's a dark movie. It's dealing with dark themes, and there are dark issues right on our screen. Wang is an artist who loves to deal with this stuff. At the same time, I think what we have to know post-1980 is that Wang is going to put things on the screen for us to react to. He's an artist. This is an art form. At the same time, being that he is not fully a Western artist, he's coming at us sort of as an outsider, and we are comfortable and we are used to a certain level of edge or controversy on screen. So when we see things that venture outside of that boundary that we've created for ourselves, and hey, hopefully you're an open-minded person who has not as many boundaries as the average person here in America, but it is something we deal with. And Wang can be coming at us on the level of David Lynch, subject matter and elements visually on screen. However, there are definitely two different artists here, but I just want to make a comparison to help describe what we're going to see and how you may interpret such a thing, because this is a valuable film. This is a film worthy of watching, but I do think it misses the mark, and I think it misses maybe the translation to the pedestrian audience in the theater at the time. However, it looks so great, and there are such talented people, whether it's writing or acting the film, portraying the roles, that we are able to digest it like intelligent adults. The other thing is that David Lynch will come at us with shocking visuals and story value, and it's not always taken on face value, and it's not always interpreted clearly or directly, and everyone has their own interpretation at that point. Wayne, you can do the same thing, and I'm going to allow us to do that because I enjoy that level. However, I'm going to be describing some things that you might take offense to or think is totally unneeded in film, and that's why it's a discussion. But at the same time, I'm not going to overbear us with those things. I just want us all to know about it. And at the same time, I think what WANG does on screen is wonderful, and he has some connections throughout the 80s, and like movies like Joy Luck Club that were of the time revolutionary until recent content. Continuing to take a step forward, we enter the film. It's Drood'sWorld, written and drawn by an ink pen. A clean sheet of sketchbook, Drood draws a comic panel and is putting the final hatch marks. We see all this on screen, just a square being drawn with an ink pen. It's wonderful to me, someone who's a working artist and enjoys the process and seeing how other artists and creatives work. It's a clean screen, like a clean white sheet of paper. Drood continues to draw. A postal worker walking a cart down to Drood's apartment building and the mailboxes is seen on screen. We see a medium but larger than other partials manila envelope holding in a pocket of the cart. The postal worker walks up, deposits that piece of mail, and a middle-aged woman in her long traditional nightgown is making her way to the mailboxes. She's excited to start her day. She's excited to interact with the outside world. And she has the envelope fresh from the postal worker. I would assume she's back inside to drop it off or find the tenant looking to receive the parcel. A radio DJing is playing a loud, obnoxious DJ. An illustrator sits passed out at a drawing desk. So many various sketches and projects, starts are all laying around. The walls are made of tile and have aging smoke spots. The room is mainly white or pale grays, and the tiles add a perforated pattern or grid-like background. Yeah, this artist Drood is fallen asleep at his drawing table, and not only the sketch that we saw during the credits, but other pieces of paper, starts and stops, crumpled up all around him, and he is asleep in the midst of this work frenzy. A phone rings. An answering machine picks up with the dumb greeting of, "Hello? Oh, did I fool you? Leave a message." Helen Drood is leaving a message, knowing that he hasn't left his place yet. He gets up, completely too late. What a jerk. He passed out, with a classic 80s tape deck Walkman and uncomfortable headphones. Remember those headphones with just the thin wire piece at the top? I hated those. They always pulled my hair, poked. Those headphones were the worst. But they look so charming. They fit right to certain people's heads. It's interesting. Anyway, he's got those on. You know, it's a little bit of a taste of Marty McFly, if you remember that from Back to the Future. That's 2 or 3 years before this. Drood, this is Wilson. Where is Drood'sWorld? Hold on, and Drood protects his voice. I don't know, Drood is like, has another phone call, and we hear it. It's like an editor asking where his comics are, and he's sort of like, hold on. And he like holds the phone, protects his voice, has a towel around his face. "This isn't me. This is my answering machine." Wow. Long pauses. The other line says, "Shit." Drood continues. "Did I fool you? Drood is unable to make it to the phone right now." He places the phone on the machine and delicately, someone is knocking at the door. So the intersection of clusterfucks is happening right now. He answers the door with his finger to his mouth, like, shh. Drood, it's deadline time. I have better things to do than chase you around all the time. If it isn't in my hands by 5, you're fired. This guy is a dirtball. And he's our hero, 1987. Jimbo, the guy at the door, is dressed in clean 80s white dress shirt, black thin tie, similar to Charlie Day in Pacific Rim as Dr. Newton Geisler. His look could use suspenders, but he's doing just fine without them. Drood, Jimbo gives him $500 cash. You sold it? Who? He's not dealer. It doesn't matter, I sold it. He drives to a school or daycare. His daughter Bean comes up to a chain link fence, like a crazy person. His daughter Bean comes up to the chain link fence, like a little crazy person. Drood asks, what are you doing? Bean, beating up boys. Feel my muscle. Margaret Bell, her teacher, intercepts. Bean says, do the teeth thing. Do the teeth thing. Do the teeth thing. Do the teeth thing. Oh, Ms. Bell doesn't want to see that. Misses. And Drood turns around like a classic vampire or monster man face, his teeth slightly protruding, and he has turned some false teeth he has in the back to the front somehow. Judith is super pro. She jumps back, screams and giggles. On mark, a master improviser. Drood continues, pushing his teeth back in place. I lost them in a fight. Warning. Kids screaming. Warning. Kids screaming. Drood has entered a child's daycare, and he's again doing the finger saying shh, and he's trying to make it in, and I guess surprise Helen. He doesn't get far, and a girl says, Drood! And the room of kids start screaming and shouting with excitement. Drood raises his arms like he's the king of the playground. This is TomHulce, and I think during the brief moment in the 80s when he was destined for big things, his boyish energy and boisterous grinning charm was what was liked in Amadeus and became probably his downfall when he was used outside of that. But he is positive, however immature here, and it looks like Helen has small beds to take care of also, so chill out. A bully comes by and whacks him directly in his balls. He folds over in pain, and the bully kid says, that didn't hurt. This is a hell of a way to start a movie. Helen has come over, and they are standing in front of each other. How do you do that? Walk in and everything falls apart. Thank you, Helen. I was just hitting the nuts with a fucking rubber chicken. Helen joins him laughing, but he really needs to sit down, so they go to the next gallery. Masks made by these kids are hanging along the walls we can see, and I like it. But from one angle, it could look creepy, hanging all those white paste-based masks alone along a white wall at a children's daycare. You can clearly see that they're sort of childishly made, but they are kind of made very sharply. They're very well contained. They're not, messy or hodgepodges of glitter and feathers. They are well-made little masks, and they're hung like you would along this wall. Of course, this is just adds to our visualizations I'm talking about. We're 9 minutes into the movie. Or do I applaud such a facility for not using the aged color variant of terrible trio of blue, red, or yellow? 99% of the time used on everything daycare or child's education based, and that needs a quick overhaul. And that needs our immediate overhaul. I disliked those colors as a kid, and as an adult, all that trio is doing is acting like a caution sign, as to say, caution while driving by, because those colors are so disgusting altogether, for some reason supposed to represent youthfulness or child or basic learning, and I guess I get it. A, B, C, blue, yellow, red, things like that. I get that, but it's like, you can switch it up. I promise you that this looks like higher learning and is open to creativity and responsibility, a ready gallery. This is space Helen is in, this sort of learning center or daycare center. It just seems like maybe it's a step above other things, and I don't even know what the basis of it is. Also, is it okay that it can be said that maybe at a certain age, daycare and learning are one and the same because your parents are off working and you're so young, it's like, don't just run around with slime. Let's learn how to read or identify butterflies. So it's like learning. Anyway, I'm just an adult, like viewing this space, and believe me, Drood's residential space is not any easier to decode. All this to also say that Helen and Drood are just sitting in this space, calmly looking at one another. Helen has her eye on the little ones, of course, and Drood, like a misfit, raises his chin and says, "Helen, what do you think about you and I getting back together?" End of scene. We step again closer to navigating this movie adventure. Drood is back. He is back at his apartment building and sees that his door lock has been jarred open. The lights are out when he opens the door a crack. A swinging, well-designed light fixture is dangling from above. In the center of the room, the set is wrecked, upside down. It's actually not a light. It's a completed model battleship, and about a yard away is a hanging umbrella. Both continue to swing non-stop, just sort of like a rhythmic swinging. A supply cabinet in the distant corner is fastened closed, while the whole room is busted loose, which is what happens just when he opens the cabinet door, busting out all kinds of junk. With the umbrella, Drood fights back, however, turns around calmly to see a buttoned-up, red shirt tucked in, hipster that is walking towards him, in his own place. I thought almost like he came from the hallway to make, like, he's walking casually as if to make a pizza delivery, but he just walked in on Drood from behind. "Here's my card," and both sides are blank. Drood looks up. He gets punched to his face, knocked out. He is in an unknown car, an unknown driver. 13 minutes into the movie. 10-minute 22 start palms. That's a note. He's in the back seat. It's nights out. He's in the back seat. It's night out. It's dark. And he is slow to again noticing someone is next to him. He again is playing this all eyes responses. He's freaked out. This is like all camera on his face. He's perspiring. He's panicked. The guy says, "Come here." He tugs Drood and keeps him close to say, with intimidation, "It's all right. Tell us where it is." Of course. He doesn't know what they are wanting, and they keep asking and basically staring at him, expecting something he is not giving. The driver, who is equally as interested, freaks out. "I gotta get back there!" He starts to go in to the back seat, one long arm at a time, and he is the one driving. The door on Drood's side is opened and swinging as the car swerves in traffic. Drood hangs out of the car and exits onto the road. The car drives off, and a semi-truck is coming straight for him. He is focused as the headlight rolls off. TomHulce is a trained actor, and his movements at times are very dancer-like, and obviously he's known for playing one of the world's greatest traditional musicians. From the road, he grabs onto the railing of a bridge and walks away. At a police station, he is calmly walking with an office worker of some kind. He is being manhandled. He's looking rough, from being roughed up on the car and on the road. This is like a second movie. We did Tequila Sunrise, and Mac McCuzak stumbles off the side of the road, although he's coming from a hotel. Drood is just coming from his own place, sort of. I guess he's kidnapped, if only temporarily. And we are under the assumption he is at this police station to inform them he was kidnapped and roughed up. Quietly, we're not given any information. He's there with like an office worker or officer. An officer shows him to a chair to sit, the center of 3. On his left side is a train-spotting-looking character who has the movements of a pervy sloth. He slowly, slightly adjusts and begins to move one hand towards Drood. We can see he has a hand handcuffed to the chair. Drood, uncuffed, moves to the chair to his right. This chair is just into the intersecting hallway. To me, it looks like it's a chair that was added. However, in municipal buildings, I have seen odd organizations of furnishings and odd misplaced seating. Seems natural. As soon as he does, someone with authority tells him not to move. He's sorry. It's one of those moments as an adult when you are told not to do something, and he's not really up to trouble or distracting, but being told or directed is not a good feeling. And it makes you feel like you were being distracting. He was honestly just trying to get away from what seemed like trouble. He moves back, and the creep sloth continues staring. It's kind of comical. At the same time, coming down the hallway is 2 officers with a tall stuntman-like criminal, and he is placed in the empty chair. Now Drood is center chair, and they handcuff him to his chair. He literally starts to grin and bear it. He's totally eating shit. His grin has less charm this time and seems more fitting for the person he is and the current situation he is in. I think we have all been there, although I'm beginning to think our character is a decent guy. However, he may have a glaring issue taking care of his responsibilities and taking ownership of his consequences, which does seem like a theme in most of these 80s movies. Our lead actor is known for his sort of Cheshire Cat grin. I don't know if that got him roles at this time. I don't know if it got him this role, if this is supposed to be more of a mischievous character, because right at this moment, his grin that's sort of signature to him is sort of, well, it's fitting in, although this is all awkwardness. You don't want to be in his chair right now, TMCMS listeners. The stuntman criminal announces, "I'm gonna kill every guy in here." The stuntman asks if Sloth Creef fucked his wife. He looks through drug-lowered eyes and sweaty brow. What's her name? This is all priceless. It's kind of comical, and again, you don't want to be there. It's awkward and dangerous. Stuntman gets the hell up and goes after Sloth Creeper, and he can only get to Drood's chair, and he can only reach enough to make him seem T-Rex-ish. He's got these arms that can't extend fully, but he's ready to murder. The 3 guys stuck in their chairs all get into a rolling wrestle on the floor. Drood is taking the worst of it. Harry Dean Stanton as Detective Benjamin Smiley. This is Alien 79, Pretty in Pink 86, Repo Man 84, Escape from New York 81, and Wild at Heart, I think 86. Harry Dean Stanton, everybody, asked for Charles Drood. You never saw these men before, saw them again, could you identify them? And he's asking Drood about the guys who might have broken into his place and kidnapped him. Maybe. They didn't take anything. I don't know what they were after. He's saying this very genuine, and we don't have much more info than what we're seeing on screen. Your kidnapping may be connected to a case we are investigating here, and you may be in connection, be considered a suspect. For what? He's detained and questioning. I don't need a lawyer. What can you tell me about Yolanda Caldwell? And this is where we enter Virginia Madsen. They found her dead. Drood begins thinking of flashbacks. He and Virginia Madsen laying after a picnic in tall grass. Drood painting a pic of female form. And Drood with her on a peach-colored bedsheet, looking up at her longing and radiantly reluctant. She gets up off frame and nude covered by peach sheets. Smiley lights a cigarette. Frank, Robert Beltran, Hector from Night of the Comet, past episode, reads the report. Drood is recalling at this moment. He's been telling his side of the story, and Frank here has been noting the main points and connecting the facts of the story. Drood is not performing it for us. We will hear it from Frank. We've seen flashbacks during this retelling. Obviously, it's very poetic and artistic, or very well edited for a film. Drood didn't know much at all about her private life. Friends, she wouldn't tell him. They were planning to go away together. I said that I would meet her there. I didn't exactly say I would go away with her. Why didn't you go to the station? I don't know. I got a wife. I have a kid. I just didn't go. Besides the idea that he's cheating on his wife right in front of her, in meeting Yolanda, besides that, this is interesting. That he's probably been thinking of why he didn't go away with this woman, and he's literally under questioning of why. And that's a nightmare to those emotionally healing in any scenario. But shout out to his wife Helen, who may not know any of this. But he is healing a broken heart in the midst of being married. And here it is, literal, not only retelling, but literally under questioning. I met her at a party at a West Hollywood dance club run by James Campbell. The music is 80s chic, and Jimbo asks Helen if she would like to dance. 20 minutes into the movie. Back at the station, Drood is looking at his reflection in the office window. Dimming light. We return to the Hollywood club. Yolanda, lighting a cigarette, returns color and light into the frame. A purse spills slowly onto a glowing white bar top, illuminating the contents. Lipsticks, liners, small perfume, a pill case, a pill bottle, and a small gun. She's holding a $100 bill, skinny ways, and tucked in between her fingers, along with a cigarette. Drood asks, "Is that a novelty lighter?" Yolanda, "No." Drood, "Is that a wedding ring?" "Come on, Drood, how are you still on a seat? She didn't slap you?" Yolanda, "You ask a lot of questions. I've just never met a woman with a gun before." And he's exuding that Hollywood charm I've been telling you about. And Virginia Madsen stands there, continuing to give him attention, and smirking. She's also shifting and adjusting her mouth in such a way it's flirtatious. And also, you would have thought that she said something, because she's all so slow, taking her time, and searching for a reply, if at all, because she is a striking, breathless beauty, and is glowing, truly glowing in the frame, in this primetime 80s dance club lighting. LOL. Because it really is just a corner. They kind of fool us thinking they're in this extravagant club. We only see like a set size, like a small amount of it. But they've lit her. She's glowing. She smiles. Her eyes are bright and gleaming. She's into it. She laughs. Her head wiggles so slight, she puckers her mouth, looking away from him. Drood is in a patrol cruiser being taxied back to his place. Smiley is speaking through voiceover with dramatic effect. "Did you love her, Mr. Drood? You still haven't answered me, Mr. Drood." He sounds like Obi-Wan or Dana Carvey. Drood responds, "I don't know. I don't know what she means. Is this movie about me when I was 19? From a doily curtain window, Drood's older neighbor watches him be dropped off. "I'm probably going to be moving from here." "What? Where's your hearing aid?" he shouts. "What?" Mrs. Raines, "Oh, Mr. Drood, your envelope." And like a lot of characters from the early 80s and 90s, as sometimes elderly or next-door neighbor types, the Kramers of the movie world would sometimes not always be splattered with a paint of paranoia, conspiracy theorists, or freaks with odd beliefs, in a minimum effort to include personality in characters that are happenstance along the hero's path. Kramer being an excellent creation, Mrs. Rain being a poorly executed and limited effort given for a movie with creative potential busting at the seam. Just short of a Gutenberg, Moranis, or early Kev Hart pictures. The return address is written, Yolanda nowhere. Her voiceover, I can't go back. And Drood's mind flashes back. We get Yolanda and Drood's journey from interrogation. Yolanda at the club, his punch to the car and road. They're combining storylines in this sort of, I don't know, transition or hop skip to our next sort of section here. And Mrs. Raines is rambling about a complaint she made to the Postal Service, who seemed on point and efficient as a conspiracy. Drood asks what conspiracy through his continued fog and now lustful nostalgia. He is a daydreamer, and I don't know, he's been knocked around here at the beginning, so he's definitely daydreaming, staring off. She only mentions someone goes through the mail. Haven't you noticed? Something's missing. He has opened the envelope and finds a wedding ring and pictures of Yolanda with several men. This looks super authentic. I'm laughing because it does really look like the clues from true crime podcasts you may seek out on the web. Drood is into it. He's intrigued. And a minor trigger warning. Because it is photos, and we don't necessarily get completely illustrated out on what is going on, but this is the start of a nasty adventure. We see a photo of men in snorkel masks holding a woman who may be Yolanda. That's silly. We see a photo of men in snorkel masks holding a woman who may be Yolanda in a swimsuit in a black and white photo. On the photo, it looked like 1985. One photo looked like 1955. Yeah, even my notes are tricky because I agree. It's wild. We're in 1985, but the photos look older. It's odd, but I don't know. Is it just... It doesn't matter. There's a crime happening, but that's an odd moment. Anyway, he goes into his apartment, and of course, he has not been able to clean up after himself or the space. He walks in. We already see the sunglassed hipster that punched Drood like 24 hours ago, 10 feet from where they are standing. He's in this corner. This guy. This time, the hipster henchman has a gun. He's mugging Drood as soon as he walks in. Drood drops the envelope and is instructed to go to the window, close the blinds. The pacing on this is slow and steady, like these two breathing. The gunman wants him on his knees, and with heat rising, he says, "She thought you were so smart. Do you have an envelope like this?" "Yes." "Get it. Put it on the table. Put the papers she sent inside. Don't look at them." He then takes a lighter and sets them on fire. In, like, the sink. The hipster, who is actually wearing a red magenta members-only jacket and white button-up with skinny tie, is leaving with the gun pointed at Drood. Okay, Drood has a lethargic attitude, and as he watches the sink catch fire to those important papers, I'm wondering, manila envelopes are not fast to burn. Most postal wrapping is slow to burn. I almost think this is a design that way. However, I get it. This is a movie, but Drood watches it burn. And I'm sure that guy was out the door. And the wad of papers and photo paper would not have been completely ruined just yet. Some of that shit could have been saved. This guy held me to a monkey cage. Some of that shit could have said, "This guy held me in a monkey cage, a limo jacuzzi, with a missile to my head. Here's the address or photo of the drivey, or a photo of the limo jacuzzi." And he could have shown something to Detective Smiley. I mean, wow, he just let it burn. Frame segue into a gorgeous coastal shoreline with a glistening cotton candy sunset. Drood sits staring, bright light and outside air surrounds him. Baby Bean asks, "Daddy, am I going high enough?" Drood answers and is drawing a jetted-sized scribble or looping doodles. Helen sits down next to him. "Jimbo said your place got broken into." "Yeah, but they didn't take anything." She's of course concerned because she's a full-rounded person. She's smart and cares for him. And cares for him double down because he's requesting for them to be back together. No Yolanda this time, I guess. 32 minutes into the movie. Helen says she doesn't think it's a good time for them to get back together. She is playing this literally with a good stance. She looks great, and I can see that she's in mom mode. But she is a natural beauty, a pretty woman, and she has sat down on this bench, and she has a fast food bag in between her legs. She's dressed for like weekend on the Hamptons. She is wearing like a white sweatshirt material, sort of like top and bottom. It's almost Star Wars, but it's also just sort of like a windbreaker sort of cut, but it's all sort of comfortable sweatpant look. I mean, she's completely like a Hollywood model, including a talented actress. But she's also, I'm trying to illustrate that she's kind of gnarly in this scene. She's kind of like, you know, an iceberg. And that's not even describing it. She's just playing a really good defense and a really healthy defense, most likely. She's taking up space with her legs spaced apart, confident, masculine, and she is a long-legged lady because her knees are up to her tits. Not affectionate, not putting out attention-seeking vibes to Drood. A brilliant set of acting here. Drood has a new lock. He's at his door. Mrs. Raines is there, the old lady. She's got a magnifying glass and she's looking at his lock, looking at his key. I mean, it's a complete awful cartoon of a person. And she's like there inspecting that he's changed the lock. He is saying, "I made you a key." She can't hear shit. She goes off, "Have you made one for me?" And he puts his key into her hand. He's inside of his place now. Drood is drawing again. Drood'sWorld panel. With a few persons standing around a body on the ground. This is mirroring the photo Drood has seen of the scene of Yolanda's death. The cartoon he's drawing is saying, "She's duh, and crude, and Drood is writing and drawing a smirking character, croaked. At the same West Hollywood dance club, with illuminated bar top, a confirmed single Drood is there to dance or drink. He orders a tequila and says he's a friend of Jim's, and I realize his friend Jimbo is his art manager and owns this club. The bartender does not budge on the price, so he buys 5 shots and drinks them all, and then he may be envisioning himself walking to the dance floor. A new craze of moshing is happening, only it's slightly lighter and includes wearing character masks. In addition to describe the sound, it's 80s Michael Jackson guitarist Jennifer Batten. Style slashing, more GNR style slashing that is passed out on the Sunset Strip. That 80s hair metal guitar, but this is definitely more chic, styled for dancing or styled for an LA club in the 80s, because that's what the set looks like, but it's definitely not like hardcore moshing we know today. More on that a little later in the discussion. Feel free to smash that message button on your thoughts of what slam dancing is. That is passed out on Sunset Strip, which is what Drood does. A few slam dance friends hop on by with masks, and one steady shoulders Drood, knocking him to the floor. A few more fall to the floor, but Drood stays there. A bright shot of a men's room, a lineup of urinals. The hipster returns. He's lurking next to Drood and asks what Drood is doing. Nothing. Like you asked. The villain gets near, and we see both in the mirror. He's pressing him. That's why he's doing nothing. You loved her. You had a gun to my head. A gun is what's stopping you? The gun is out. We are chicken shit. The villain is saying this and continuing to be enigmatic. Drood is laying in what we see now a retired tile pool. He has had his desk and residential workshop set up, and now it looks cleared out, barren, back to a clean sheet for plush tools and sauna baths. A drafting stool is in the shallow end. Drood is on a flat bench like a battleship extended hot dog style, laying down thinking, sitting up thinking, setting up an easel, thinking, setting up a canvas, preparing. Egg Tempera. Okay, so we're in his studio. It looks like a sauna or definitely a pool, tiled pool. This whole time it's been that way. But he, at one time, had it all set up and he was working in it, right? And not paying his bills or whatever, not turning in his work. Now it's been cleared out or up, right? And it's just the pool with a stool and a little workspace. Then we see him in 80s montage mode set up a new painting. In order to paint this, he's going to use the style Egg Tempera. And I'm someone who actually studied Egg Tempera, and early on in my art exploration, one of my most favorite pieces was done with Egg Tempera. So one of the first things I was looking up exploring art was this process. So here I have a note to reference. The artist Reginald Marsh, he painted a painting of models in a storefront window with patrons and commuters on trains and ferries, closed spaces, and era-specific fashions. And my favorite is some models in a storefront window, because of the time at a really nice shop like a department store, they would actually have models, professional models, modeling fur coats and dazzling dresses and all the stuff, and men also in their suits or whatever. And artists would paint that and use that for subject matter in all forms. But Reginald Marsh did a wonderful job and painted several of those with Egg Tempera. The swishing, swirling dresses and outfits worn by dancing persons and bodies of the time, the energy and movements of jazz parties, dances, and close groups at key parties, types of parties that were happening in that era. In 1929, Reginald Marsh included using Egg Tempera in his work. He found it to be somewhat like watercolor, but with more depth and body. That is a real-life example of the artist Reginald Marsh. The actual process in use, it's a fast-drying medium consisting of pigments mixed with a binder medium, a glutinous material such as egg yolk. Tempera paintings are very long-lasting, and examples from the 1st century AD still exist. If you've watched any National Geographic or art travel content, you've probably seen something painted like this. Egg tempera was a primary method of painting until after 1500, when oil painting became more popular. And oil painting is rad too. The finish is also a unique coating, important and valuable as sharpened details. You can call me straight A's just, because art history and me work well together. Back to Drood. He mixes himself up a batch 40 minutes into the movie. He's painting from the images of Yolanda's crime scene, and in the yellow envelope were the 2 pics we glimpsed. He has some preliminary sketches, and some have names like Cleveland, Schwartz, and a snorkel. I have a Days of Thunder garage moment, because as an illustrator or artist, he wouldn't use an ink fountain pen to do his thumbnail sketch work. And being that it is a movie, I get that he thoroughly looks artistic using this damn pen, but he would look equally artistic, equally personality boosted if he used a Sharpie or crayon, which for the work he's doing would be a good start. He most likely would use charcoal, but I see the character they are trying to build, and he's ink-based. Drood is also continues to have flashbacks, and depending on your streaming speed, the variety in flashing on screen his paintings is shaping up. We can make out the figures and the scene is set. Over one male figure, he paints a line for snorkel goggles. The oval shape, he paints a line for snorkel goggles, the oval shape. Like he's creating this image and we're finally seeing him maybe even discover it on his own. He's going to paint this snorkel goggles over this figure. And it's pretty haunting, and I was trying to illustrate by saying that there's a flashing on screen. It's obviously he's reading into the trauma, and Wayne is doing an excellent job of conveying that on screen. Dt.Smiley is at his desk, looking at files on internal affairs. Denise Barron with the detective John Gilbert closing a case, possibly prematurely. Smiley is flabbergasted, and I can only give so much of what's happening because, like many movie club movies, lines are being ADR'd and mumbled, and the plot at this point I think is being pieced together 50 minutes into the movie. Smiley meets with Detective John Gilbert and they take a walk to a stairwell. Smiley: "What are you doing?" Gilbert: "Protecting you." As they walk away, Smiley continues by saying, "Zeta Temps, I got you laid." That's Harry Dean Stanton as Detective Smiley. "Put your little Drood in mine. There ain't no Hollywood sign we can't climb. Hey, I got you laid. So put your little Drood in mine. There ain't no Hollywood sign we can't climb. Hey, I got you laid." Speaking of Drood, he is standing at a window looking out the dark city rain, which is rare that it rains in Hollywood or LA for that matter. Drood sees the criminal stalker, Hipster, in his red jacket, lurking in an entryway below Drood's apartment. So he's been looking out his own apartment window, and we see the Hipster in the red jacket, in the rain, in a corner of this alleyway. Drood becomes defensive and irate. Can we blame him? I mean, he's already being emotional, and I guess quietly in this scene, it builds up and he takes action immediately. It is pouring like a rainforest in Seattle, a sauna in Honolulu, a sprinkler system in Albuquerque. You know, at Whole Foods, when the sprinklers turn on and hit the carrots? It's raining that hard in downtown Hollywood, LA. In the frame is an entryway or indention, and we see the entire alleyway, ground to both walls and neighboring buildings. And the road in the near distance is getting soaked from the curtain of rain, taking over the silver screen. To our right, in the indention, is the red jacket, and Drood has approached him, arms armed to his sides, ready for a fight. Behind them, just before the road, are two arching archways over window wells, and in this rain-drenched silver, blue, and black image, they look strong. The background is like still of the building, and it's got these really great archways as these two dirt bags square off. Drood punches first. That's the Drood I think he wants to be. "You think this is a joke? I'm sick of this, man. Leave me the fuck alone." Hipster hits back and attacks. And this is where I don't think Drood is being true to his character. I think he keeps passing out. He's knocked out by life, right in front of his face. How did he ever meet a woman? How did he even meet? How did he ever meet and bed Yolanda? Reads, Helen is a school teacher and Drood reads as intelligent, but is playing out a strong, healthy person. From his life, a series of dumb, not intelligent scenarios play out. Here's another one. Drood is knocked out, in the pouring rain, in a back alley in LA. His opponent seems to have more of a heart than expected. And have I mentioned, I suspect he is Yolanda's husband, if there was one. He takes off his members-only magenta jacket and places it over Drood's face. I had to think about this for a while, and I am guessing that he is protecting Drood from getting fluid in his sinuses, like infection or pneumonia from being in the rain with his face broke up. A kind gesture, but yeah, just go away.
Leave me the fuck alone.
Yes, but I think he wants Drood to solve this case. A pressure, a push for closure. Detective Prosa shows up.
and then walks away in the dreary, rain-drenched background.
That's a deja vu shout out. Back to Drood wakes in the light of day, sleeping at his place. The red jacket is on his pillow. He immediately opens it up and empties the pockets. The guy smokes menthols. So this is the red jacket guy's jacket, the red jacket. He's also got dice in there, maybe a parking tab card, a card that is blank, a small photo of Yolanda, and a basic business card that reads, Zeta Temporary, quote-unquote, office services. That's something that Detective Smiley mumbled to Detective John Gilbert in the stairwell. Asking for Yolanda Caldwell. She no longer works for the company. He's calling Zeta Temporary. And the operator or receptionist is telling us, how about Michelle? Michelle was trained by her. Drood is interested. And we can assume he's interested in solving a mystery. And this could be a call service. Or it could be a true data entry temp service, in theory. Drood is willing to take the chance. And hey, it's 1987. Let's do this. Could it be a temp service or could it be a call service? Stanley Ipkiss from The Mask is what Drood can sometimes remind me of. And I don't know how, but Stanley's apartment or world is more colorful and more saturated. But there is something here too. It's saturated. It's bachelor framed. Bachelor color harmony. As he closes the appointment, he freshens up. The actor has a bag of silly faces. Again, see Amadeus. Oh, are you back already from Amadeus? Well, in this scene, his face fills the mirror. On both sides of him are walls. One is a solid warm cream, aged apartment paint. And on the other side is tile-filled wall, which gives off a men's boxer short pattern. And again, I reference Stanley Ipkiss. In the mirror, using a towel, we can see the actor's eyes are just crooked enough for him to look like an insane gremlin with googly eyes. He's got like a googly eye angle to his real-life eyes. Then I took a breath, looked inside myself, and saw my heart had googly eyes too. This is our chance to warn. The next few scenes are all problematic. So I want to warn you all listening that the next few scenes are all problematic. I intend to cover these as a cinematic tour guide and try to inject as much fun as is appropriate. Are you up for it? Okay, TMCMS, eat some calming gummies and let's go. Lisa Niemi, the wife of Patrick Swayze as Michelle, shows up, and she is in a colored fall coat that's gray. She is a blonde woman with her hair up, and she is carrying a typewriter case. Drood welcomes her and notices the case. He's accommodating, and here we begin to get the wires crossed, and miscommunication through a Benny Hill nightmare will set us off more and more. Drood politely and genuinely asks if she would like water or anything. Water is fine, but she's okay, and ready to begin. The room is bare, remember, tons of tiling, and in the middle of the room, and centered in the frame, is this damn painting of his murdered mistress. Justin, how dare you? Drood goes to our left for glasses of water. Michelle stays where she's at on the other end of the painting and gets undressed. Oh, Drood is making tea and turns around to see Michelle is exhibiting herself. And I have always been twisted, and this is also coming from memory, that Drood is an artist. And I guess not all artists would deal with live models, but he is bringing that respect to this scene. But his confusion is also applied to my memory that she is not here for live model drawing sessions. And that always throws me off. He laughs from confusion and awkwardness. She is a beautiful woman. I am Santa Claus, and she's ready to get it on, and is fully nude, wearing flattering heels, and turns facing camera. She sees the painting of Nancy Barron, she says. This is why Drood took the chance to have her over. Drood says, "What did you say?" Michelle is backtracking, and the awkwardness is hard to bear right now, but the information is crucial to solving a murder of a young woman. I don't know anything. Drood is grasping her, which is inappropriate, but he is apoplectic over this complete mess. He is pushing her to look at the painting and tell him her name again. She is still naked. Helen opens the door. Bean, their child together, is with her. Drood can only say, "It's not what it looks like it is." Bean says, "Hello, hello." Helen, Michelle, the audience, Drood are all mortified with embarrassment and sickened by the bad timing. Helen, "She's a model, right?" "No, she's actually a secretary," and laughs. He doesn't accept his consequences, but chases after Helen. The door closes and we can see a magenta-red members-only jacket wadded up, hanging near the door. Drood chases down Helen. In a car, he's running alongside her driver's window. However disgusting, as a viewer, I'm dying. For them to communicate clearly for this scene for 45 seconds. You're sick, you really need help. And she drives off into, literally, up a hill. Into the sky as the sun sets, and Drood rolls up to his feet from the road. He remains roadkill. He returns to his place, and the door is locked. He goes to Mrs. Rain's door. He gets no answer, but opens her door with a knock. He looks around, and she looks dead at first. He sees a pile of mail, and really, all over her place is stacks of mail in various forms. He's reading postcards. He's reading past postcards, all with the recipient, such as C.C. Drood, crossed out, and Mama Rains is written in all of it. There are other recipients from the building, of course, and Drood finds that Helen has sent a few as her and Bean travel. And I think Helen has a creative side also because her handwriting is neat and with a designer's touch, almost graffiti level. Drood goes searching for something more. He messes up a bunch of her stuff and finds a picture from the envelope, which we keep coming back to, of Yolanda perhaps, in a fountain with these men wearing snorkels, and they look to be in the pose of cherubs peeing into the fountain. Although this all looks like posing for a picture, here is where I apply sensationalism. This is a movie, and in order for it to be shown, it should look a certain quality. The makers want to explore subject matter that is on the edge. Always an okay example is Basic Instinct. That goes to the edge and was down the line accepted as brilliant, but other filmmakers want to put in saucy material, and we are dealing with Me Too movement where some filmmakers were abusing the tool of filmmaking and the human sexual experience. This film, among others in the 80s and 90s, have brushstrokes of sex and taboo. To explore the sexy side of 80s society and progression, however, at times, these sensational add-ins backfire and become sick and infected. Why is this in the film? Is it Chinatown, or is it tasteless and just tits? This movie is surely controversial. The movie has sensational elements. I cannot help it. I want to put thought to what I'm seeing, and I have the trust that the filmmakers are taking responsibilities where our character, Drood, is not. 1 hour into the movie. Join the conversation. Hashtag TMCMS. Follow along and smash that message button. Join the conversation. The Movie Club Movies on Letterboxd at TMCMS. Follow along and smash that message button. Drood wakes Mrs. Rains up. He seriously frightens her. He grasps her the same way he grasped Michelle's. He wants to know if she has more info from the envelope. This is a hopeless action on Drood's part. He apologizes profusely and places her back in bed. He heads upstairs and is again locked out of his place. With force, he breaks off his doorknob. This is the luck he's having. He's just trying to turn the doorknob and it breaks. It's worth a chuckle. He forces his way into his own place. With full steam, he busts into his door, and again, the camera is already inside, shooting from the ground at a body of Michelle. She is still nude, and as Drood knocks into his door, he hits the floor. His face goes directly onto Michelle's special purpose. He did not intend on this. I am desperate to recognize Drood's intelligent, yet is forced into dumbness by his own actions, his own inactivity, responsibilities. He was a gentleman closing the door as he ran off to apologize for being a jerk. Is there a Jean-Luc Godard film to be referenced? Join the conversation. Hashtag TMCMS. Follow along and smash that message button. Drood takes a moment to react. Drood grabs the red jacket and closes his door, heads to his car with the photo of the men at the fountain. I'm stammering, guys, because that was a tough scene, a tough few scenes, and I'm not even telling you some of the more brutal details and sort of the more aggressive details. Literally, Drood is just trying to find out information, and he's been put, in this instance, in front of very challenging individuals, a miscommunication on one side, and then I think out of shock and defensiveness, he ends up hurting his neighbor, shouting and causing a ruckus. It was a lot more verbal and emotional than anything physical, and I think he has to put hands on shoulders in order to focus his sincerity and seriousness, however inappropriate. That's the only physicality that's happening, is that he's kind of like, look me in the eye, tell me this info, and he just can't get the info. And one of his connections again was killed almost right in front of his face by a mystery person. He just cannot track down, and I feel like he's a strong character, and I don't want to be fooled, but he's not as strong as I think of him as. His surroundings are defeating him at this point, but he still has some resources. He's at the police station, and Smiley's department is wishing him a happy retirement. It may be a sort of party. Drood sees John Gilbert hanging on Detective Smiley. Gilbert to Drood is the driver of the car when Drood was taken by Red Jacket at the beginning of this nightmare. The two kidnappers were the hipster in the red jacket and the driver, and this driver is Detective John Gilbert, who's wishing Detective Smiley a happy retirement, as Drood has come to the police offices to inform Smiley, and as he sees this connection, quietly makes this connection, a sign reads Happy Retirement above the offices, and at the intake desk is one transgender character. They are dressed like an 80s sex worker. Anytime an 80s movie takes us to a police station, 80s sex workers are the most colorful and fashionable. Is this movie colorful and fashionable? I want to say yes. Join the conversation. Hashtag TMCMS. Follow along and smash that message button. Drood heads to his car. Instead of talking with Smiley, which again, another crossed wire, because don't we think Smiley is on to Gilbert being up to something? I mean, he is investigating and he has been intersected with Drood and mentioned, you may be a suspect in an investigation that's ongoing. Drood drives his car out of the police station. He's driving an old Cadillac. It's a nice off-white two-tone, or it's like aged color-wise. It's got some character, just a little bit of character. He pulls up at Helen's house. I have a clip. Hanging from a ledge just below the kitchen window near the sink. Helen is watching him hang there, desperate. Helen, unlock the door. You have the phone off the hook. And Helen, I don't know, with unintentional comic timing is like, yeah, I know. She's shaking her head. She refuses. Drood is playing around, jumping up to the window, but he is serious. He needs to review. Reset with one social resource. Helen is gorgeous. Her curls are fanned out, framing her face and emotions. A bow tie that would make Hello Kitty proud, and her robe look kinda like a double-breasted raincoat. That shape, but she's dealing with Drood. She shuts him down, shuts the window. But she lingers in her house, in her living room, and sees Drood go to the front steps, and is a bit more annoyed. She looks out her front door, and this shithead is to the side of the entrances, behind the large decorative cone light. He's a daft Romeo, and she's embodying every woman in 2024 as her character annoyingly searches for a guy named Drood to shoo him away. Away with you! Away with you! Drood left his car running, and she goes to his driver's side window. Her ex-husband, Drood, sneaks into her house. Guys, we can be better people. She is playing this literally. He's inside. She sees him and follows him shouting, "You can't do this." He explains a sentence and a half. It's about a woman. Her acting is incredible. You're here to talk to me about another woman? If it wasn't her, this would be cliché and terrible. I think this is a Joanne Valinari levels of telling off shithead guys, as classy and tactful as the character can be. As soon as you see Jimbo in the first scene, you somehow know he is sleeping with whoever Drood is cleverly involved with. Jimbo is standing in his underoos and a dumb hat. Drood wants to see his daughter, which he does without disruption. Bean has a mosquito net-like canopy around her bed and a waterfall lampshade. Drood finally leaves. An investigation is taking over his apartment. Seems to be led by Gilbert. Gilbert is our eyes in the place, and he takes a walk up to where Drood would sleep and had some ideas mapped out on the walls. Not overstated, but a corner we had not seen, and it looks like he was thinking. However, not Gary from Game Night levels. And Gilbert passes the room to go out on the fire escape. down to the garbage cans. A patrol officer discouragingly is going through one can. Gilbert dumps out 2 or more. Smiley is there on the fire escape, looking down at the trash on the street. Gilbert pulls a gun from the trash. Looks like Red Jacket's gun. Smiley goes to meet Helen at her work. They meet at her desk. Drood calls. Helen covers as if he's a concerned parent. Call back later. TV announces the murder of Yolanda Caldwell. Adrian Schell was found shot in the head at C.C. Drood's apartment. He's a wanted man. His suspect sketch looks like Bob Dylan. Wherever Drood is staying, he gets up and leaves. Smiley is exhausted on a couch with Gilbert, sharing drinks. It's not just you and I, it involves big people. Anyone who went to a party.
The movie club movies looks around at the theater. I've been to a party in 1987 Hollywood.
This doesn't seem like it sits well with Smiley. Gilbert continues with a key piece to the puzzle. Drood has got to go down on this, or we all go down. The music outside of the slam dance has been really great, and flaring percussion leads to think of a Mick Jagger song, High Hopes. Helen is asking Jim about Drood. Helen now has like blonde highlights under her bangs and forehead. Helen is at Drood's place looking for a little red book. Mrs. Raines is no help. Drood has dyed his hair and is dressed looking like the hipster Red Jacket. He's smoking, looking like Bruce Willis from Death Becomes Her. Drood shows up wherever Jimbo is and follows him. They end up talking. Jim calls him selfish and mentions how frustrated Helen is and Bean is doing worse in school. Drood needs Jimbo's car and gets physical. Remember the machines used to research newsprint articles? Microform readers? Microfilm? Fletch uses one with Gina. Articles with headlines about city police sex scandals. And the 2 articles I caught, there's a photo of a fountain under the Hollywood sign in the distance. It's like a microfilm sort of like projector tabletop booth. It's also in the American The Ring, I think they used them. The researcher. Anyway, we just saw the articles. Drood is reading the articles. He finds one far in advance, which reads, Nancy Barron, first identified as an aide to Bobby Nye and later revealed by the police to have been an expensive prostitute, sex worker, was released today after a month in police custody. We just didn't have a case. The DA's office. Drood prints out a picture of the fountain under the Hollywood sign. So what does he do? He goes to the Hollywood sign and brings binoculars. He spots the fountain immediately. And Italian vocal music is playing, and the fountain is flowing. A party is popping, and Drood has showed up, walking straight through the frame. It is a live performance of vocal music as background noise for this part on the lawn. We're at 1 hour and 15 minutes in the movie. Drood knocks a guy's plate down. A woman helps Drood out and says not to pick it up. This is a very hot to-do place. Hoity-toity, the old money picnic or barbecue of some sort is very hot to trot. I don't know what to say. I'm lapsing for sayings for rich people barbecues. Barbecue. So valuable. She asks a server to get Drood a new drink, and she offers to introduce him to people. Stammering, Drood is introduced to Councilman Greenman, Cleveland, on and on. These are the Fountain P team. Pee-wee's P team. P-Team Pee-wees. Not the Fountain A-Team, B-Team, C-Team, D-Team, E-Team. The Fountain P-Team. This is Mr. Drood. He's an artist. I'm not familiar with your work. Oh, but you will be. Pam. The server is back with a champagne for Drood and asks if Miss Bobby Nye, would like anything. He's brought to a room flanked by ancient columns like from some ancient wall of justice. Nye is looking at a modest-sized piece. I overpaid, but I suspect it will rise in value when the artist dies. First off, the artist is Drood. This is a piece he did with Yolanda. Second, this is a modern painting of Yolanda, a blonde, her face away from the viewer, and she is posed in doggy style sexual position with swooshing strokes of color as if a bed of sheets. Okay? Hipster red jacket enters the room, but since Drood is wearing the jacket, the guy is in a gray suit. Drood is looking at Nye. She is adjusting a ring similar to the ring Yolanda had, a photo of Nye and seated Yolanda as if mother and daughter is on her desk in the frame now as we're being Drood's observant eyes looking around the room. Drood, you killed her? She says she was betrayed. Drood, over some pictures. You don't know what love is, she says. She is a smoking pile of garbage in, fabulous, rich robes of things. We're sort of tiptoeing into Chinatown land of, I guess that's noir, but a lot of people are just straight up ripping off that movie rather than the genre. I'm not saying this one's doing it. This one's just got
Hints at Taboo.
peppering this in, and I've held back on another movie I'd like to reference. Maybe we'll pause for just ref. Tonight's reference is a repeat because I said it in the last episode. You can tell it's a true blue reference because it really just keeps sticking with me. That's what I mentioned in the last episode. We can put a highlight on this one attached to this film today in its Chinatownness, in its true to the genre noir. The movie, the made-for-TV series, it does run like a movie from 2019, I Am the Night. It was produced in part with Wonder Woman's director, Patty Jenkins. Also, Chris Pine had a part in this, and he is playing a detective of sorts who has been run his way through LA in the mid-60s, and he is out to find out more information about India Isley's character, Fauna Hodel, and the Hodel family versus what she came up against in her childhood and the mysteries involving deaths and murders. I cannot get further than that. The further I go from there, it starts to ruin what you can watch, and it's just great. It's just solid. There's nothing extreme or exemplary about this miniseries, and it just has stuck with me. And here's a repeat for just ref. Now back to the movie. Okay, wonderful. TMCMS, we're also at that point in the movie I like to call the sidewalk endings. And on sidewalk endings, it means most likely you're listening to this podcast on your commute somewhere, or if you're like me or like my friends, you might be on a hike listening to a podcast, or on a walk with your pet or with your friends. However, when does that come to an end? But if you time it out right, maybe it comes at the end of your podcast, back at your place, and the episode is winding down, such as your sidewalk. Welcome back to Sidewalk Endings. TMCMS likes to celebrate the idea that there are really climactic, fun endings of really fun 80s, 90s VHS era movies. This one is starting off with Red Jacket, circles Drood, and takes him out of the room. Drood is in the front seat of his car, Red Jacket is in the back seat behind him with a gun. Just like at the club bathroom, Red Jacket gets up close and kind of whispers, "She was nice to me. She was nice to me. Ms. Nye told me to hit her, so I did. And she broke her neck hitting a coffee table. So this whole thing is because of an accident. She was nice to me. She was nice to me." And he shoots himself. Drood exits the car on his knees getting sick behind the Hollywood sign. We're at 1 hour and 20 minutes. Drood calls Helen for money and a change of clothes. Remember, he's a wanted man for Red Jacket's crimes. This is not helping anything. That he was just now in a car where a man killed himself. The man who ultimately is the true criminal, among others. He's desperate, and Helen has not talked to him. She is new bang Helen, remember, with the lightning bolt streak in her hair. He wastes our time asking about a room they stayed in together. Behind him, while he's calling, is like a funhouse shape of, I don't know, hotel windows. Helen is hanging up the phone, and Jimbo is at the house. Helen then calls Smiley. "I know where he is." Jim does agree she should help him. Okay, whatever. They swing for the fences with "I love you for sentimental reasons" playing over a montage of Smiley thinking, Jimbo thinking next to the phone, Mrs. Raines in her bed with the photo's content, Nye at her desk looking at another more family pic of her with Yolanda. Helen arrives at wherever Drood is staying. The walls and everything looks like purple velvet. She has clothing for him, and he picks up a hat she brought. "It's Beans. I thought you needed a hat." Fugitive elf. TomHulce must have been hilarious to watch laugh. I don't know. This is like his tryout for Amadeus, or switched. He laughs, and this is supposed to be like he's rad, he's really silly. Maybe Patrick Bateman's or Jordan Belfort's cronies bought his type of comedy. This is weird. LOL. At the door is Smiley. Drood is freaked and holds a gun. This is at like some odd hotel, and these little bits of terrible movie is that they honeymooned in this hotel room, and it might be, off the top of my head, might be like magician themed. The walls are sort of purple velvet and all of this. We don't get into it. It's weird, and it's just a random hotel room, So now Smiley's come to the door, and Drood is so paranoid and a man on the lam that he's got like a gun to the door, and we're inside of this awful hotel room. Okay, get the picture? Bad movie. Bad movie. Bad movie. At the door is Smiley. Drood is freaked and holds a gun. Smiley shows his hands and comes in, and out of somewhere is Gilbert. He's got a gun. Smiley: "What are you doing here, John?" Drood's gun is pointed on Gilbert. That's John Gilbert, detective. Drood is flashing to see Jim talk it out with his red jacket assassin and others. The room has turned into a director's funhouse, as Drood and Helen, I think, are reflected by mirrors, and Smiley is in the middle of the room with Gilbert bookending on that side of the frame. Off frame, but as a reflection near Drood on screen, on that side of the frame. And I'm describing it as best I wrote it. I remember writing this along with what I saw on screen, and it is got a merit of a really nice, interesting way to design the frame for a noir standoff. But we are at a point that this film is sort of weak, and you have to like put this visual in your wallet here, because it's really well done, and you don't just make those shots every day. But it's a gun standoff between Detective Gilbert, between Detective Smiley and Drood, and Helen is caught in the middle of this. Drood is caught in the middle of this, but is of course the wanted man. Detective Gilbert takes Drood's gun. Smiley confronts John, and Canon Films quality ADR continues. It's wild, stiff. Smiley gets shot, going hand to hand with John Gilbert, then gets included in Drood's SLAMDANCE montage flashback. You guys gotta follow along with me. This is a movie that can get artistic in the linear narrative. The SLAMDANCE jam is kicking in, and Drood overtakes Detective Gilbert and shoots him. He's dead. Helen and Drood are in a shatter effect kind of glam shot of their expressions from like a mirror above or somewhere on an angle. Obviously a lot of chaos just erupted and a mirror was broken, and we are seeing the reflection of our two main characters, definitely Drood and Helen. We gotta get out of here. While Helen says no, more so about the death than leaving, she's driving. Drood is saying, go, 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 go. It was clearly self-defense, but Drood defends his actions by saying he was intending on killing anybody. He's a cop killer. He's scaring Helen, who is showing signs of distraught. Within reason, we obviously understand. And she's showing signs of obvious distraught. And she drives this shithead, Drood. He's doing his laugh, saying he's a dead man. And this is definitely a turning the corner of our sidewalk endings. His dramatic tool is to rely on this, I don't know, is it supposed to be unique laugh or charming laugh? I don't get it. Don't get it. And that he's going to kill himself. Helen shouts, say something that makes sense. This guy is a toxic personality. Helen is driving the nursery school's minivan. Just an added detail. It only makes me laugh, I think. What do I tell Bean? Drood. That I will be there. Drood is crying tears. I love you. And we're supposed to be caring about him. I only care about him because he's our main character as instructed by the rules of Western filmmaking. I also relate to him because he's an artist, and forgive me, but I want to latch on to these characters and find out about their lives. Go along with their experience on the movie screen. Could you blame me? And he walks to his car, still parked behind the Hollywood sign. My God, how did he avoid getting towed? The dead body of a hipster hitman is in the back seat. Drood has a toolbox. He brought a toolbox. You know, that was probably something Helen brought to the hotel. But we're still able to work on his parked car, which is only maybe the third most Hollywood magical thing in this movie. But it's Wang. He's going to do things that are out of this world. Referencing David Lynch, possibly. Drood's car, still parked after all of this, undisturbed through the night above Hollywood. Must have been a dead night. Drood sets fire to the car and contents. Great shots of that preparedness. The fire is set ablaze, and Drood is blasted away from the car for dramatics. Yet we watch him set this car on fire, and then, I don't know, I guess he casually walks away. He doesn't walk away fast enough. He stands there and watches it, and we blow him away. Kind of just away from the scene, but I don't know. I think they're just trying to tug at our ticket sales on that one. Again, I'll just file it to artistic expression in mainstream cinema. The funeral concludes, and Helen and Bean walk away to the cars. They have a limo waiting. Oh, possibly we're supposed to believe that Drood died in that car. It's a very subtle setup. Here I am narrating what I see on screen, and it doesn't really match up with the narrative. I don't mind this movie, but I get a kick from those type of parts that fool me, and I'm not following along with maybe a less than sophisticated movie narrative. Jimbo, remember that guy, is lurking near the entrance, and Helen tells him to fuck off. Drood is seen in a driver's seat rear view. Like the rear view is framing our scene here, and it's Drood putting on sunglasses. Helen and Bean are riding safely in the back seat. The fam drive away. Got high hopes. That sort of putting on the glasses in the rear view was sort of a wink to us, the audience, a wink to his own family. Hey, I'm Drood. Everybody loves me, right? Well, I'm still here. I didn't blow up in a ball of fire that came from a parked car overlooking Hollywood at a place that I would think would be a very popular towing area for scenic choices and just general adult mischievousness, you know, parking above or near the Hollywood sign. It is a very popular area at, like, you know, New Year's Eve and things like that. Anyway, got high hopes. Okay, just a few ending notes here. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio is doing stellar work after all that I harped on about how maybe missing the mark this movie is. A rewarding actor is Helen, or sorry, a rewarding actor is Mary Elizabeth playing Helen, and I just think that she did a really great job. And of course, I'll review that R.I.P. Judith Barsi, you know, potential, the world was in her hand. You know, she was already coming out of the gate as a kid actor with 2 voice acting roles that were really golden, and just poor supervision from her adult parents led to her ending her career tragically. But we won't end on that. I didn't mention that the radio has a disc jockey who is doing radio banter, like improv scenes and shtick, sort of at the very beginning of the movie as Drood's running errands. In between him rolling around in his car, the radio will still be going with some really hack-like jokes. At the time, I think it would have been charming. We were nostalgic for radio. Not we, but the generation going on back then. And anyway, it falls on dead ears. I wasn't chuckling. So I didn't include it in the recap tonight. They fall as duds, like the podcast I'm doing. They are adding to a fun concept for a fun true crime neo-noir set in trendy 80s Hollywood LA. But pay Louis Anderson or Chris Rock to finish the hokey jokes. Jimmy Kimmel was literally working as an 80s radio punch-up guy. He could have done this for low pay and in an afternoon. No disrespect. Shout out to Jimmy Kimmel being legendarily funny, genuine. Or Drood could have been doing the voices, which I actually thought he was sort of the first time it hit. I rewinded it somewhere after to see if it was Drood's voice, because he's doing this comic panel, and he could have been doing the voice for that. And I know that might even be going on a limb, but I'm giving the terrible writing of those radio skits, I'm giving you a olive branch to say, okay, we'll let you do your dumb radio interludes, but could you get Louis Anderson to do it? Could you find an intern at K-Rock? Which just adds to my observation that Drood sells himself as rad, different, maybe anti-authority, but he's soft. He doesn't fully fight back, and he's slow to be redeemed, and his cartoon work does not reflect his personality, but is presented as a way to communicate that to us, his introduction, for one, and the title of the comic is Drood'sWorld, and we hear his name, Drood, 1,000 times. Obviously, another introduction to hammer home what I'm talking about is that when he goes to visit Helen, all the kids love him. With his daughter, he's got a routine. He's got a routine for almost all of our characters. We see him be playful and possibly creative. However, I don't feel like he's redeemable or resourceful. Those type of perspectives, his character does not round out. It just stays an introduction. The movie would have benefited from a Keith Haring cameo because, for the most part, I think that this is what the character wanted to be, and they could have been peers, contemporaries. Remember, he's supposed to be an illustrator, and again, going back on what they're trying to plug into us with these introductions is that he's some sort of charismatic, he's some sort of artist with personality, he's in the want, they're wanting his comics, although I think it's just, he doesn't know what he has, and he's playing himself, he's playing people. if you're a professional, show up for the job, or get out of the way, let someone else draw those comics. There's a lot of people waiting in line for the opportunity that you have right in front of your face. Drood, that is the character we're watching for, almost 2 hours or what have you, and fall in the face of Coochie and also just get smacked around by someone who may have loved his mistress more than him. I mean, what are we talking about? But I hope you guys enjoyed the recap, and I don't know. I do always suggest watching the movies I'm bringing because that's a part of the podcast, but this one is more difficult than others, but we've got some other wild movies to come. So you might want to check out some of the best scenes of this or follow along with the scenes I recapped. Also, I'll never judge you if you'd like to just read the Wikipedia plot of any movie. And that's something for a conversation for another time. And until then, please be kind. Please rewind. You can find us anywhere you catch pod, as well as Letterboxd at #TMCMS, the Movie Club Movies Podcast. Be sure to smash that message button for just rough